I want to take just a few moments of your time to share with you an exciting project that we have going with the charity for the rest of the year. Before I go any further with that, I want to show you why we are doing this project and who we are helping with it. This child's name is Jane, and we found Jane just 1 kilometre away from where we are building our new children's village, which is a 9-hour drive from our existing one. That area has nobody educating, caring for, or trying to assist children with special needs. Jane's mum has to go to work, and so the only option she felt she had to keep her daughter safe was to peg her to the floor, as you see here. This, of course, is not a way of life for anyone, and Jane has lived that way the whole of her life. What we are trying to do is make sure that we can build a solution that's functional for children like Jane. To do that, we need to raise $200,000 by the end of the year. And to do that, we are hoping to get 2,000 volunteers who will agree to fundraise $25 a month, or if you are blessed enough to be able to share that without fundraising, of course, that's an option, every month for the rest of the year. If 2,000 people can commit to doing this, I know, because I have a working blueprint of the village that we currently have, that I can build a working solution that will be able to provide a loving home for 150 special needs children in that location. I also can say that every dollar will go towards construction. Every dollar. And this is a promise that I know I can make, because after 10 years, I think I'm probably better seated than most human beings to fix this problem. If you want to know more about the project, feel free to reach out, or you can visit the link at the bottom of the screen, www.sharetanzania.com/2000 strong. There you'll find out all the information you need. Thank you for the love and support. We can't do what we do for these children without you. God bless, guys. Bye. My whole family and myself have a bit of a cold virus courtesy of my son's kindergarten this week, so I hope it doesn't affect me too much making this video. I thought I'd best mention it just in case it does. You know, we all sit here every week, and I hope it's viewed that we discuss together, for all it's electronically and you can't really respond. I would prefer that we investigate things together than me tell you something. Putting someone in a position where they just tell you is, I feel, not healthy. It's better to allow a voice to turn your attention onto the topic inside yourself, especially in the discussion of awakening. But every week we discuss awakening, spiritual awakening, rebirth, that freedom, that shift in living from an identity that is not rooted on the birth certificate and your memories, but an identity in the eternal now, where the presence of God can take hold of the vessel. But what are the consequences of that identity, that freedom being lost? They are manifesting in the world around us. You know, when you look to a bird, the wholeness of a human, I feel, can be encapsulated in this analogy. If you look to a bird that's flying, it's gracefully soaring through the sky. It's maneuvering through trees, and it's riding on the wonderful winds of the world, of the planet. That bird is whole in its activity. It is present in its complete entirety with what it's doing. It is a manifestation of awakening, of enlightenment. It is enlightenment in the format, in the shape of a bird. I would say, if you were to add a certain hardware into the brain of the bird, a hardware that doesn't want to be whole in the moment, but a hardware that instead wants to fragment and dissect reality, control it, to become the workings of it, to embrace God power, not through connection to it, but through control of it, through its intelligence. If you were to put that hardware into a bird, then as it's soaring gracefully, you might see that all of a sudden that bird will look at its wing and say, I wonder how that feather works. Or it may look at the feather and start contemplating its aerodynamics. It might feel the wind under its wings lifting it and pushing it as it flies. And it may start to question, what is this wind? What is air? What is the composition of it? And I would say that as the bird is flying and that part of the technology engages and it gets that way, I would say that that bird will likely fall out of the sky, or crash into a tree, and just stumble and not be graceful anymore. The flight of the bird in its wholeness is its presence in the presence of God, in the presence of creation. The mind trying to control, dissect and fragment it is the same mind that humans suffer from. It's only humans have lost track of our flight. What is our flight? And I would say, as flight is the wholeness of a bird expressing what it is, I would say the love of Christ, the unconditioned love of Christ expressing in a human, animating that human's intelligence to create in this world a world, a community, a civilization of wholeness, of love, of connectivity, not of separation. I would say the love of Christ is akin to flight in a bird, in a human. When we are whole and complete, that will of unconditioned love, that divine will in the eternal now that is expressed through the human vessel in the eternal now, that there is the same as the bird in flight. It's only we've forgotten it. We've lost track of it. We don't even know what our flight is. That would be it. The awakened state is the human in flight. What is the result of us forgetting this? We engage instead of that wholeness. We engage our intelligence and we grab at the wholeness and we take little compartmentalized elements of it and we start to control it. And we want to control this little piece and this little piece. And we feel if we just control that one little piece and understand that next little piece, that eventually we'll get it. Eventually we'll have something. We'll have some progression that we hope to hold and maintain as a species. Eventually, you may argue, we'll be God. Is what we are playing with that part of the technology of our mind. Now, however that part of us entered into the vessel is open to discussion. However, there are many ancient stories pointing towards the notion that there was a fall in the human species. The Bible denotes that we were deceived in the garden by the serpent. Other cultures that predate that have said we were interfered with by another worldly force, an alien force that came to this world. Alien means a force from beyond this earth. Came here and interfered with us, perhaps we can say genetically. There are many ways to point at whatever happened, why that exists within us, this part of us. But what I can say is that part of us that wants to control, it's optional to move away from it. It's possible to move away from it. But you see, we are too arrogant to live that way. We are obsessed with thought, and we don't recognize the minute capacity of it. And so we hang on dearly to the identity thought has created for us of our self-image. And yet as we hang on to that identity and feel we have control in this illusion of separation, the illusion of thought creates that separation, the illusion of the self-image born from thought. We forget that millions of processes are going on in the body and thought has nothing to do with it. Thought is profoundly limited. Not only is it limited, but the overuse of it separates us from the original state of creation. And the original state of creation, our original consciousness, is where we will manifest our flight. It's where we will build a society which is founded on care and love for Mother Nature. It's founded not on its destruction, not on just taking resources to fill this desperate void we have of not feeling whole and needing to fragment this, to understand this, to control this. In the hope, I argue, of filling the void that part of the anatomy within us has created to begin with. You see, that part of the anatomy creates the void because it creates a space where we never stop talking to ourselves, and therefore we disconnect from reality and move into a world of what we think about reality. And that separation creates a desolation inside us. We yearn for wholeness. We yearn to reconnect to our flight. And we can't, because we're always falling out of the sky, because instead of coming into the wholeness of being present with flight, we're always looking at the feathers and the wings and the air and the clouds and trying to understand them. And in doing so, we miss our wholeness. And our wholeness is for our intelligence to be animated by the wholeness, the completion, the sense of unconditioned love found there. And rather, our intelligence and our activity is animated by separation from the wholeness of flight, from the rocky state, the bird that can't fly, that's rocking and dropping out the sky because it keeps thinking about the feathers and how it can control it, how it can redesign it. And so from that state of mind, the intelligence in the activity is stimulated by something totally different. When this happens, the consequences are dramatic. If you look inside our human story right now, that which made humanity fall, which made us separate from our state of perfect flight, gliding like a bird, and start looking at the feathers and saying, rather than, I don't know what this is, but I trust it in faith that this experience is mine, this is my life. Thank you, God. Here I am, in the eternal now, this wonderful expression. Instead, the arrogance comes in. We don't know what this is. Nobody knows what this is. It requires faith and surrender and trust in God to accept that. Nobody knows what this is. No one knows. Even at this modern day, people are debating, is it a simulation? What is it? But nobody knows. It's arrogance that says you know. You don't know. Nobody on the planet knows what this is. The bird in flight doesn't know what this is, but it knows it's in flight and it's awesome. The human who is open in the heart of Christ also doesn't know what this is, but knows that it's awesome and knows that God is awesome. There's a trust there, faith, and that awesomeness that's felt is the grace. In society, we've lost track of our state of flight, and that is our identity in Eden consciousness, the original identity we were created to have. And the loss of that identity, the fall, however that fall occurred, the fallen ones, Lucifer and the fallen angels, it's pointed at this fall of humanity from that state of flight to this state of confusion and need for control and power and everything else, is denoted as the fallen angels and Lucifer. The Sumerians said it was an alien species that hacked the human vessel to make it a slave technology, separated it from the grace of flight, its connection to God, into that state of fallenness so it was controllable. And we are left with that body to navigate our way back to our state of flight, to that love of Christ, as I argue is the state of flight for a human, the enlightened state, the profound freedom of the non-dual consciousness and the divine will of the eternal now revealed to us there as individual organisms. When that happens, we are pushed into the technology of the self-image and imagination by society, by the fallen ones influencing it. And it becomes this bizarre parade that we see, where society is crazy. Because now we have humans who are never not talking to themselves, and so they never see reality. Their senses never get a chance to settle into Eden creation. They're so arrogant and obsessive about their own creation that they say their own creation is truth. Their own imaginings are truth. We have human organisms around us who have filled themselves with the illusion that they are a persona. And that persona talks to them so much they don't see reality anymore. They see what they think about reality. And our systems have started to agree that what these personas imagine is somehow truth. Truth is a singular thing. Truth is singular. Truth is not personal. Truth is never personal. Your identity in God is never personal. The presence of God in your life is not a personal presence. Truth is not personal. It's an opinion is what persons are referencing. And as that escalates around us, we can see it. That people are even confused about the God-given creation. And we are saying sometimes these children here, see this child, the mind of this child is in the wrong body. And so we must alter the body to match the imaginings of this part of the technology. This is as Krishnamurti said, to adjust yourself to a profoundly sick society. It's not something you should be doing. This is not health. This is not going to fix anything. You see, when society at large centers itself around the true identity of humanity, there we will see the freedom and the sanity returning. Right now we don't have it, because we have taught children that what they imagine can be their truth. This is a game of the mind. The mind is doing many, many things. The personas are doing many, many things, but right back here in reality, in the foundation that gives birth for the opportunity for you to imagine a self-image of your own creation, we have a rooting. And unless we reconnect to that rooting, we are inevitably going to destroy Eden, the origins of creation. We're going to destroy it, because we are going to create further and further separation from the original identity that we were born into this realm with. And that identity, before the world told you what you are, is an inseparable, connected part of the arising of nature. The forest has peopled, let's say it this way, the forest has humaned humans. Humans have citied cities, and cities have peopled persons. And those personas need to be understood as a game to function between ourselves. And we need to go beneath there and recognize our core origin. That the forest humaned humans, and that humaned has an identity. And largely the voice that has allowed that human to grow in this world is not that of the persona. It is that of Mother Nature and the presence of God within there. the source code. Sadly, we have separated as sentient life often so deeply from the source code that arguably the very code of this 3D reality we are in has been affected by the void of separation, affected by the state of consciousness of the bird that's not in flight properly, because it's not whole and present. And as we do that, we see that in the past, men like Yeshua came, and not only Yeshua but others, and they had more power over this reality by remaining in a state of flight, in a state of union with God. The state of flight of the bird is the human in that state. That they were healing the sick and casting out the demons or the higher dimensional forces. They had more control over this reality by remaining whole than all of the dissection, fragmentation and intellectual control since. All we have done since. We have never managed to gain that level of control over reality because we are choosing to control with the separate, voided self-image instead of through the surrendered state, the vessel that has united fully with the nature around it as the bird has in flight. And there the power as a conscious co-creator of a human is not fully known by us. It is not fully known, but these miraculous healings, they do happen because people are breaking through this matrix of torment that we have largely entered into. They are breaking through this 3D matrix whereby which the very source code that originally wrote the Eden consciousness has been hijacked by the fallen ones. And by the very potency of being perfectly present with all that is, which is the awakened state, to be whole in every activity you are doing. To be whole in faith in every activity you are doing. That connectivity has written over the top of this code. That connectivity has power here to change it. But the fallen ones, they never want you to reach that state of flight. They never want it. And many of your world leaders, they don't need to know any of this. Because by the very nature of the way they live their lives, they are living from the wobbly bird state. And in that wobbly bird state, the fallen ones can influence them, is what I perceive. When they are whole, the fallen ones have no influence over those beings, because those beings have the Christ power, the human in flight. And so they must put into your mind, as that glorious human soaring on the winds of the world, look at your feathers and ask what that's about. And as you do, you start to wobble. And as you start to wobble, you feel uncomfortable. And as you feel uncomfortable, they put another carrot in front of you and they say, take the alcohol, it'll make you feel better. Take the entertainment, it'll make you feel better. Take the mindless pleasure, it'll make you feel better. And before we know it, we are coerced into this weakened state. Last night, for the first time in months, I tried to watch a comedy movie with my wife. We normally watch Christian cinema movies because they're free of agenda. I tried to watch it, and in there was a line, and it said, "This is why men have fought and died in wars, to earn the right to masturbate in whatever room of their home they want." When you hear these jokes in Hollywood, it's terribly anti-human. It's terribly miserable and catastrophic that is the truth. That is the truth. That other human beings have fought and died in wars to give human beings in this day and age the opportunity to just do that with their life. Some up until the point of death. That will be their memory bank. Because they were enslaved to the matrix. They were enslaved to the pleasure because they never knew flight. They never knew flight. Their intelligence wasn't great enough to understand how it works. And so they never ever became whole. And so they always felt the void. And by always feeling the void, they always played into energetically, I argue, the fallen one's needs. We are God's children. We belong to Eden consciousness. We belong there. We don't belong to the vain ramblings of our imagination and the technology and the self-image. We don't belong to that chaos of separating from the very foundational workings of reality which our society is arguing we should do right now. We belong to God's creation. We belong to it. We are it. We're not separated from it. And the separation from those identities is the birthplace of the manifestation of the activity of the fallen ones inside our human story. And the return to the Eden consciousness is the birthplace of the manifestation of the will of Christ inside our human story. We must awaken. Non-dual awakening, it's very real. Because it's seeing the world as God's presence intended you to see it. It's trusting that presence to guide you. And we have come so many generations separated from that. It seems hard to even imagine that the voice of Spirit would be able to lead you to do what is right. But it is absolutely certainly so. That when the human organism shakes its back, and the human organism gives itself back to the will of unconditioned love, to the will of Christ, that self-image and that persistent need to self-talk is gone. Stop talking to yourself. Stop talking to yourself, and the voice that replaces your own will be the voice of God's. God bless, guys. That was all. I'm feeling a bit from this cold, so I hope it was coherent.